This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
More than 20 people killed in a tanker explosion in central Nigeria. The UN warns that thousands of Mozambicans risk hunger due to an insurgency in the north. And East Africa records progress in the fight against the desert locusts, but the UN says the battle is not yet over. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. The details on those stories in just a moment, but first, here's Rama Nyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Hard-pressed Zambia is now seeking relief from private bondholders as debt service pressure continues to rise. And with its tourism sector on its knees, the Seychelles is facing harsh economic realities as it heads into the polls. We'll have the details on those stories and plenty more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. Let's start with developments in Nigeria, where at least 23 people, including students, have been killed in an oil tanker explosion in Nigeria's Kogi state. According to witnesses, the petrol tanker rammed into oncoming traffic when its brakes failed. The tanker then exploded, setting ablaze nearby cars. The government has dispatched police officers and other security teams to the scene to control the situation. Nigeria has a history of deaths from oil tanker explosions. Witnesses have been speaking about the tragedy.
And by information, a whole family has just perished here this morning. And unfortunately, students that were happy that they returned back to school after over 7 months of break, they all perished here this morning. In fact, we are not happy.
What happened this place is too much. Always, last year the same thing. It's not fair. This our life is in danger in this environment. They should do something. We have government.
Well, let's cross over to Deji Badmus in Lagos. He's joining me live from there. Deji, quite a tragic accident there. What more details can you tell us about what caused the accident and the condition of the casualties?
Well, Beatrice, the first thing to say is that this is an accident that should not have happened in the first place, because it's actually not the first time an accident of this nature would be happening around the same spot. The road is in a bad condition, and then it's on a slope. It's a very narrow road, and then you have houses just around. So it's a terrible thing. The bodies have been evacuated. I have seen pictures that unfortunately we cannot show to our audience. Bodies burnt beyond recognition, and quite a number of them students, because around the area where this accident happened, there is a polytechnic around that area. So these returning polytechnic students, of course, were involved. And then there were students too, students of primary and secondary schools who were going to school early that morning, and they were involved in the accident as well. And the Federal Road Safety Commission says 23 persons died from that accident. Some people, of course, got injured. They suffered. They got several degrees of burns now. They are at various hospitals, but the dead have now been evacuated from the scene and taken to the morgue. But it's a very terrible tragedy, Beatrice, quite horrible.
Well, Deji, the government has sent in security officers there to check out the situation. But how well equipped are the local firefighters and hospitals to deal with the tragedy in this particular region?
It's very good you brought up that point, because that's what people have been asking. Beatrice, where this incident happened, where the accident happened, there is no firefighting station around the area. Firefighters did not respond in good time, and that's the reason why we have this number of casualties. All the vehicles involved in the accident got burned, completely burned, including the tanker. So not until the whole thing was over before firefighters responded. So people have been asking that question because it's not the very first time an accident of this nature would be happening around that area. People have been asking why a fire service station has up till this moment not been constructed around that area, because we always have accidents like this. So no doubt poorly equipped firefighters, no fire service station around the area, and the ones who responded were not effective at all. And the casualties were already recorded before we got a response.
Well, Deji, you mentioned a point there, and you say these accidents are common in Nigeria. So what is being done to prevent similar ones occurring in the future? And how successful have efforts been to do that in the recent years?
To be candid, it's difficult to say this or that is what the government is doing to prevent an occurrence like this from happening. Some roads are really in very terrible shape. Some are so narrow. The state government, of course, has responded to this. The deputy governor of that state actually visited the scene and said the state government is now liaising with the federal government, because it's actually a federal highway, that the state government is liaising with the federal government to fix the road and to erect a fire service station around that area. But then how many places would you have fire stations around this country when the roads are not in very good condition and they're so narrow? So it's difficult to tell you know, what the government is doing to prevent things from happening, things like this from happening. But the truth is that something needs to be done about people who build very close to the road. The casualty figure may not have been this high if people had not built very close to the road, because some of those who were affected were actually passers-by.
Deji Badmus joining us there from Lagos with that tragic accident. Now, in South Sudan, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says an estimated 625,000 people have been affected by flooding in areas along the White Nile since July. According to a report released by the UN agency, Bor County in Jonglei province is one of the most affected areas. The report also says the organization will be allocating $10 million from the South Sudan Humanitarian Fund to mitigate the effects of the floods. The funds will go into helping an estimated 360,000 people immediately. Many areas in the country, including infrastructure like airstrips, are already submerged following the flooding of the White Nile. Well, let's now head to Mozambique, where an insurgency by a militia seeking to establish an Islamic state up north has resulted in a humanitarian crisis. The World Food Programme reports that thousands of people have fled their homes and abandoned their farms, leaving them with no food. CGTN's Wanja Mungai reports.
Metuge camp in northern Mozambique has been a safe haven for displaced people. Here they receive medical care and much-needed food from the World Food Programme. They have been fleeing an insurgency in their villages in Cabo Delgado province, near the border with Tanzania. Tinashe Raul is one of them.
We tried to sleep while people were screaming at the house next door. I couldn't even walk, I was so weak. That's when I noticed that the neighbor's house was burning. Our house was built from bamboo, without clay on the walls. And we managed to tear a hole in the wall and escape, but my daughter was left behind alone. My husband had to pull her out, and finally we made it, and we had to hide in the bushes for 7 days.
Ansar al-Sunnah, an Islamic militia attempting to establish an independent state up north, has been blamed for the violence. Government security forces have been launching attacks. The fighting has led to civilian casualties and damage of infrastructure. Since the insurgency began in 2017, the United Nations has reported close to 500,000 displacements, leading to a humanitarian crisis.
At this moment, we have 310,000 people around the provinces of Cabo Delgado, Nampula, and Niassa. And also, UNHCR has reported that around 1,000 refugees has crossed the Rovuma into Tanzania.
The donations are still not enough to feed the families. Tinashe and her children have had to cope with a challenging situation.
The owner of the house where we are staying has a television. So, to trick the stomachs of my children, they watch TV to distract them from hunger. When they watch, they forget they're hungry. They get used to it. There is no other way. We left many things behind. Here, we depend on people's kindness.
The UN body fears this migration could lead to a faster spread of the coronavirus. So far, the country has reported more than 7,000 cases and 45 deaths. To respond to the challenges, WFP says it needs $4.7 million a month. For now, the fate of people like Tinashe hangs in the balance. Wanjamungai, CGTN.
In Kenya, the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization is reporting progress in the battle against a locust invasion in East Africa. However, the organization says there is still a lot to be done to avoid future cases of invasion.
In recent months, Food and Agriculture Organization has been partnering with governments and other agencies to control a locust invasion in East Africa. The invasion is a threat to food security in the region, a region that is now already feeling the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, FAO says the battle is being won, but the war is not yet over.
We need to sustain the effort. I think the challenge in this part of the world is really to sustain the effort. We know that we will have most probably to continue until the beginning, well into 2021, while I think being able to scale up efforts, for example, in a country like Yemen, which remains really a source of desert locust.
FAO has developed tools to help governments and partners track and collect information on possible hotspots for breeding of swarms of locusts. One such is the locust 3. It is designed for early warnings and detection of locust outbreaks. It also identifies the green vegetation that could create conducive environment for breeding of locusts.
FAO has developed a number of digital tools for countries to use in the field to collect that very necessary information, that data that's required to understand the current situation and then to plan and prioritize the control operations. So one of these tools is something called locust, locust 3, because it's the third version of this tool.
We've been engaging with the FAO and other partners just to contain the invasion. We have had one of the most serious invasions in 75 years. But through the process of managing it together with partners, we have developed our own capacity to contain it.
Currently, FAO is conducting aerial control operations in northern Kenya and the larger Horn of Africa region.
We have received relief from the FAO project. They sent the pesticides. They have been using the planes to spray the desert locusts with pesticides. They have really helped because they have finished the desert locust swarms.
However, the UN body is warning that some climatic conditions in Somalia and Ethiopia could provide perfect conditions for summer breeding of the destructive pests. The organization is calling for more surveillance and economic safety nets for affected local communities. The innovative tool was designed to improve early warnings by enabling rapid detection of desert locust outbreaks and the green vegetation that is likely to become sites of locust infestations. Wanjamungai, CGTN.
Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has pledged that the country will hold free and fair elections. His announcement comes after the Ethiopian parliament voted to hold the polls that had been postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. The country's electoral board is now expected to announce the schedule for the 6th general elections. CGTN's Girum Chala reports from Addis Ababa.
Ethiopia will soon start preparations to hold its general elections. This is after the majority of members of the nation's parliament voted in favor of the exercise.
75 years ago.
Addressing the United Nations General Assembly virtually, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed promised the world that his country will hold a peaceful and credible election.
Rest assured that we remain committed to the objective of democratization, and we will pursue our reform efforts with all the necessary political commitment to achieve a successful transition and hold peaceful and credible elections.
A few months ago, Ethiopia's general election was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the Ministry of Health suggests that while holding the election is possible, devising a proper election guideline with COVID-19 in mind must be a priority.
Unlike our former election procedures, it's critical to put together an election guiding protocol and code of conduct while keeping the COVID-19 pandemic in mind. It's also crucial to prepare at all levels in order to create the capacity to execute the election as per the plan. While doing all this, in case a major outbreak occurs in some places, we have to always consider an exclusive approach of addressing the incidents.
Many have criticized the government of proceeding with election plans while holding strong opposition leaders such as Jawar Mohammed, Iskandar Nega and Bakala Garba in prison over alleged criminal acts. Abiy Ahmed, however, believes his government has worked to open up the political space in the country.
Over the past 2 years, we have also been exerting every possible effort to open up the political space and promote the exercise of democratic freedoms and human rights. We have no illusion that this would be a smooth ride, and there have been stiff challenges along the way.
Now that there is a green light from the lawmakers to hold the general elections, the Ethiopian Electoral Board is working to come up with the election schedule, which will include voters' registration and final dates of vote casting. Grum Chala, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has urged the international community to reaffirm support for multilateralism and stay committed to the UN Charter. He made the remarks during a video conference with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. President Xi hailed the UN's contribution to world peace and development, saying China will continue to help the global fight against the coronavirus pandemic. He also promised to make Chinese COVID-19 vaccines available to the world. President Xi said China does not seek global hegemony, but is determined to safeguard its own interests. Guterres, for his part, thanked China for its support for multilateralism and world peace. He also hailed China's efforts in tackling climate change and expressed support for China's plan to build a green Silk Road. You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Somalia's historic city of Marka reaps the fruits of peace following an agreement signed in 2018. And bad diet and inactivity blamed for rising cases of obesity in Nigeria.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
The number of global COVID-19 infections may have gone past the 30 million cases mark, but one of the world's worst affected countries has now eased its pandemic-related restrictions to their lowest level in 6 months. South Africa, which has over 660,000 confirmed coronavirus cases, has now moved to lockdown alert level 1, which has opened up the economy. CGTN's Travers Andrews tells us more.
Now that South Africa has moved to lockdown alert level 1, many liberties have been restored. As a result, more people have chosen to head back to work. They've had to embrace the COVID-19 new normal and live alongside a disease that has claimed more than 16,000 lives in the country. The drop to level 1 regulations, though, has been encouraging for many who've had to weather a storm, which put a lot of pressure on the public healthcare system.
We've had large numbers of people being infected. We have a very young population, so we don't have the same elderly population that Italy and the UK and others have. So I think from that point of view, moving to level 1, I think we certainly will get some sporadic outbreaks in areas. And so I don't think we're going to see, in the same way as other countries have had, a major second wave.
The new alert level means fewer restrictions. Many are now free to see family and friends, dine in restaurants and visit malls, while the curfew has been pushed back to midnight. The steady decline in infection rates has been attributed to adherence to the golden rules of hand sanitizing, wearing of masks and social distancing.
We're still going to need all the precautions. We're still going to need to wear masks, have social distancing and other things. But it just means that we are less likely to have a major impact on the health services once again. And that's really what the virus does. It really burdens your health services, and and that's why you need to shut down, because otherwise you can't cope with it.
Under level 1 regulations, international air travel is now also allowed, and that is expected to be a big boost for a tourism sector that contracted by over 90%. For many Cape Townians, it's been a long 6 months, and while COVID-19 complacency could lead to another hard lockdown, many are keen to enjoy these less restrictive conditions.
Lockdown level 1 for me is good because, I can visit my friends. A lot of them are in old age homes, like this big one here.
It's very good because we can do actually anything now. Like we can go to the malls, we can go anywhere now.
Of course, there are some restrictions that remain to curb the spread of COVID-19, such as a ban on nightclubs and restrictions on gatherings to no more than 250 people per an event. Travers Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
In early 2012, heavy fighting broke out in the historic coastal city of Marka in Somalia's Lower Shabelle region. The violence raged on for years, uprooting thousands of people from their homes and farmlands. However, through the intervention of clan elders and backing from the government, the community and surrounding areas are now enjoying the fruits of peace. This followed a 2018 peace agreement signed by representatives from warring subclans.
The Habar-Gidir and Biomal subclans are the two main communities living in Marka. Marka is about 90 kilometers south of the Somali capital, Mogadishu. Conflict between the two clans began over control of the rich agricultural land in the region.
The Biomal believed that they were the owners of this land and that the Habar-Gidir had no right to live here.
Dozens were believed to have been killed during the fighting that went on for 6 years. Many, including women and children, were forced to flee the area, fearing for their lives and property.
Schools were closed as parents feared sending their children out. Homes were deserted, and there were no medical facilities.
As women of the Lower Shabelle region, we have gone through really tough times. We have lost our sons and husbands in these conflicts and wars. There was an incident where a pregnant woman gave birth under a tree and bled to death due to lack of medical services.
After a few years of fighting, views over the conflict gradually began to soften.
We realized we were fighting over nothing. We agreed as elders to first reconcile amongst ourselves before trying to end the conflict.
We agreed on 3 resolutions: a cessation of hostilities, the holding of a more inclusive peace conference in Marca with the support of the federal government and international partners, and integrating the sub-clan militias into the government forces.
In early 2017, Somalia's federal government supported a more formal reconciliation initiative. Elders from both sides, commanders and peace activists came together to discuss ways of ending the hostilities.
We reached a sweet peace deal in the Lower Shabelle region. Today, you will not hear the sound of a bullet being fired or see sub-clans fighting.
After a months-long negotiation process, the 2 sub-clans buried the hatchet. The residents of Marca are now enjoying the outcomes of these efforts. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
On to Matters Health now. The number of obese adults in Nigeria is on the rise. That's according to a report by a health tech firm. Poor eating habits and sedentary lifestyles are the leading causes of the condition. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam has more details.
Burning up calories with some workout routines. That has become the new lifestyle for Nigerian fitness coach Nwanneka Nweze. The 29-year-old began a personal weight loss journey about a year ago. At the time, she weighed 125 kilograms. She was determined to get back her self-esteem and maintain a healthy lifestyle. And she has lost over 38 kilograms since she began her weight loss journey. And now Nwanneka helps several others with similar struggles.
There's a picture I took about myself. In that picture, I was literally very big. And I was so ashamed to put out the picture because everywhere was just enlarged. And I asked myself, what the hell is happening? I'm so young. At that age, I was 29 and I was so big. I asked myself, I don't need to continue being this obese and everything. So that was when I started to take up the journey. I have classes both online and offline. So you have to prepare people mentally first for weight loss before they can start.
There are a growing number of overweight adults in Nigeria and across sub-Saharan Africa. That's according to health tech company Wellknew.me. In its recent report, many people in sub-Saharan Africa are adopting a lifestyle more commonly found in the Western world, eating excessive amounts of high-calorie foods and spending more time sitting down.
Quite a worrying trend because we are now seeing that there are large sections of the female population in Nigeria that are putting on more weight than they should. Obesity itself is a health problem, but also increases your risk of developing things like cancer, things like hypertension, things like diabetes itself.
Recently, a lot of people in this part of the world, Africa, have adopted the style of eating processed food and, having the habit of not exercising. So eating late can contribute to one being obese, eating fatty food and junks, and eating too much. Too much of everything is bad.
According to the World Health Organization, about 26% of Nigerian adults are either obese or overweight. Many say that maintaining a balanced, healthy diet can be a costly venture, especially for the 82 million people that live below poverty line. But medical experts warn that managing health risks associated with obesity and being overweight comes at a much higher cost. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
The Chinese video sharing app TikTok is helping young Ghanaian performers to launch their careers as its popularity in the country grows. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Ghana's new TikTok sensation, Jacqueline Mensah. She started out doing impressions of TV shows and posting them on the video sharing app.
My first viral video was from a scene in Vampire's Diaries
a very emotional one where the girl kept on insisting she was okay when she wasn't. So I think by that time it was a trend on TikTok. So I actually joined and then it went viral since then. So it gave me more courage to upload more videos.
With more than 380,000 followers on TikTok, Jacqueline says the app has helped her to improve her acting skills, and she now dreams of becoming a movie star.
Through the TikTok app, I've had the chance to meet like well-known people in the industry, to talk of the acting industry, the music industry, like some well-known Ghanaian celebrities. And I hope in the course of this, I end up in Hollywood someday, because I think people have seen the talent in me. And then not just have I featured in movies, but then there are upcoming projects as well.
You make me un poco loco.
While she makes it look easy, Jacqueline says it can take hours to produce a 1-minute video. What started off as a hobby for Jacqueline is now a source of extra income. She says she gets to advertise some brands on her TikTok. TikTok is increasingly popular amongst young people in Ghana, but data and security concerns raised in the USA and India have left some wondering whether it is safe to use the app. The US government says the platform collects vast swaths of data from users and that TikTok has to cooperate with Chinese intelligence services if requested. The company insists it doesn't share data with the Chinese government, and some analysts in Ghana agree.
I really don't think TikTok is a threat, because the data that's taken from you is just like any other app that's taking data from you, and we haven't heard it being used against anyone, so why should I be worried? It's a social media app. I use it for fun. Everyone uses it for fun, so let's use it for fun.
Jacqueline says she's not worried about any security threats when using the video sharing app. As she gets more creative on TikTok, she hopes to make it all the way to Hollywood. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, let's now go to Rama Nyang for a look at the day's business news. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. Press Zambia is now seeking relief from bondholders as debt servicing pressure rises. With its tourism sector entirely on its knees, the Seychelles is facing harsh economic realities as it heads to the polls.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start in Southern Africa, where Zambia became the first African country to ask private bondholders for relief since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The nation says it needs breathing space to plan for debt restructuring, and it's asking holders of 3 Eurobonds, worth about $3 billion, to defer interest payments until April. Now, Zambia's $1 billion Eurobond due in 2024 was down in London trading to about $52.46 cents on the dollar on Tuesday, after the government said that a coupon payment due on the 14th of October would be included in the proposed suspension. Other countries have also recently rung alarm bells in financial markets. Angola, which has negotiated debt relief with some of its lenders, told the IMF it may have to approach a wider group of creditors if oil prices continue to decline. Kenya in East Africa said it is at high risk of external debt distress as foreign currency obligations are growing much faster than what it's earning. from revenues abroad. Now, the Seychelles will be holding its general elections sometime next month. The polls come at a pivotal time for the nation, which counts 115 islands off East Africa, with its vital high-end tourism industry practically on its knees after its borders are closed due to the pandemic. The island's luxury tourism spots welcome more than 360,000 visitors back in 2018, twice as many as a decade before, and nearly 4 times the entire population of 95,000 people. Hundreds working in the tourism sector have effectively lost their jobs this year. The Seychellois rupee has shed more than 40% of its value against major foreign currencies. Now, normally the country does hold separate legislative and presidential elections, but they were brought together this year in order to save public money. President Dani Fare is facing 2 challenges at the polls.
Seychelles stepped up to the challenge despite being faced with an economy crippled by the collapse of tourism, our primary industry. We foresee a 14% budgetary deficit for this year instead of 4% surplus we projected before COVID-19. The Seychelles economy was set to grow by 3.9% this year, but will now end 2020 at negative 15.2%. We estimate it will take at least 5 years for Seychelles to return to where we were before COVID-19, assuming the world gets a vaccine.
Now, Ghana is planning to list its gold royalty fund in London next month, in a deal expected to be worth up to $500 million. Now, the government-backed Agyapa Royalties has hired Bank of America and JP Morgan to pursue an initial public offering at the LSE. Africa's largest gold producer wants to take advantage of the good prices we're seeing so far this year to raise the money, assuming, of course, this plan doesn't run into any domestic political opposition. Agyapa holds interests, including mining royalties in Ghana's gold assets. Now, royalties essentially give the country the right to a percentage of production from mining operations, and they also retain a stake in a mining company. Further afield now, the Chinese head of state Xi Jinping has set out new goals to fight climate change at the ongoing UN General Assembly in New York. According to Xi, the world's second largest economy aims to reach carbon neutrality before 2060 and enjoy its greenhouse gas emissions peak in the next decade. CGTN's Timothy Ulrich explores what this new commitment means for the UN's efforts to galvanize action on the climate crisis.
In a much-anticipated speech, Chinese President Xi Jinping heralded China's success in the struggle against COVID-19. He said the global response to the pandemic made clear the need for multilateral cooperation and less finger-pointing, as well as the need to put lives over livelihoods.
The spread of the virus must be contained. Facing the virus, we should enhance solidarity and overcome this together. We should follow the guidance of science, give full play to the leading role of the World Health Organization, and launch a joint international response to beat this pandemic. Any attempt to politicize the issue or any stigmatization must be rejected.
President Xi renewed China's pledge that any vaccine developed by the country would be a global asset, available to any nation, especially developing ones. Xi also stressed China's economic recovery and called on the world to use this crisis to make progress toward a global green economy. UN Chief Antonio Guterres, for his part, highlighted the need for unity in the face of the pandemic.
COVID-19 is not only a wake-up call, it's a dress rehearsal for the world of challenges to come. We must move forward with humility, recognizing that the microscopic virus has brought the world to its knees, and we must be united. We have seen when countries go in their own direction, the virus goes in every direction.
U.S. President Donald Trump weighed in on the issue. As deaths from COVID-19 in the U.S. surpassed 200,000, Donald Trump continued to blame China for the spread of the virus in America. President Xi reiterated China's adherence to multilateral trading norms as laid down by the World Trade Organization, and said great powers should assume greater responsibilities.
We will never seek hegemony, expansion, or sphere of influence. We have no intention to fight either a Cold War or a hot war with any country. China will continue to narrow differences and resolve disputes with others through dialogue and negotiation. We aim to foster, over time, a new development paradigm with domestic circulations as the mainstay, and domestic and international circulations reinforcing each other.
Climate change was another focus of his speech.
China will scale up its intended nationally determined contributions by adopting more vigorous policies and measures. We aim to have CO2 emissions peak before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060.
The announcement is a significant step for the world's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases. It also presents a different view from Trump's. The U.S. president has referred to climate change as a hoax. He pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Pact in 2017 and called the agreement, with nearly 200 signatories, a one-sided deal. Timothy Ulrich, CGTN.
Now, according to this year's UN Trade and Development Report, the global economy is facing a rather deep recession because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The global economy is expected to contract by more than 4% in 2020, and the shortfall in global output by the end of the year could be over $6 trillion. Now, this report does paint a fairly stark picture for those in the developing world. Between 90 to 120 million people are going to be pushed into extreme poverty. Close to 300 million more face food insecurity. Latin America is likely to be particularly hard hit. East Asia has positive growth. China is expected to grow by 1.3%. Now, with Huawei no longer able to buy chips produced with American equipment, the Chinese telecommunications giant is now rolling out a strategy to deal with these restrictions that are coming out of the United States. CGTN's Wu Lei is at the company's annual flagship event, Huawei Connect 2020, in Shanghai. He filed this report.
In the face of U.S. sanctions, Huawei's rotating chairman Guo Ping says the company has sufficient stock to continue providing businesses with chips. But they are still figuring out ways to acquire millions of high-end chips for smartphones, and American companies are applying for the special license as they hope to provide them with the technology.
These sanctions have not only stopped American companies from selling chips, but also limited global companies outside the U.S. We still hope the U.S. government will reconsider their policies. If they allow us to, we'll still purchase their chips.
Guo Ping says the company's current goal is to survive this difficult period. As 5G is rolled out at scale worldwide, Huawei believes connectivity, cloud, AI, computing, and industrial applications have all come together to create unprecedented opportunities for the ICT sector. But how to keep the data safe is a big concern across the world.
One of the major challenges is data security and data management. Because data is everywhere, we have to come together to guarantee its safety and make sure governments, enterprises, and individuals can benefit from the value of data.
The U.S. has recently launched a Clean Network program. It not only aims to keep Chinese hardware companies out of America's 5G infrastructure, but also telecoms carriers, cloud services, and app stores. Many say fair and transparent global standards are needed.
We need an objective standard to define clean 5G. No specific government or politician can define what a clean network is. I hope global society can work together on a united network and data security regulation based on international facts and rules.
During the four-day event, Huawei is showcasing its latest ICT technologies and providing scenario-specific solutions along with its partners. 5G, cloud computing, and AI are some of the fundamental elements to build a smarter society. Huawei hopes to work closer with global partners to enrich industrial applications so everyone can enjoy a better and safer connection. Wu Lei, CGTN, Shanghai.
And we'll leave it there for the time being. I'll be back at the top of the hour, though, in global business. We'll be looking at trade talks when we come back. Kenya's patience with her neighbours in East Africa seems to have run out as a deadline for trade deal with the United Kingdom comes very, very close. We'll have the details on that and plenty more at the top of the hour. See you then. For now, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. Let's now take a quick look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. We will kickstart our countdown to the Safari Rally special by checking in on South African maverick Benjamin Habig.
One and the rock, Uncle Rye.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The South African National Rally Championship is 60 years old this year, and after a delayed start, got underway in Secunda, where Benjamin Habig, one of the most exciting prospects to have made the move from karting into rallying, made his debut. He has now set his sights on making a name on the continental rally scene. CGTN's Du Plessis has more.
From early on, Benjamin Habig knew he was destined to become a rally driver.
The moment I got hooked was obviously through my dad. He rallied for a good 30 years plus, and I think from when I can remember, I was just able to walk and I was going on the rallies, and as soon as I could talk, I think a few words afterwards was, "Dad,